Mr. James Donovan.
Thanks a lot. Cheers. Oh, can you hear me okay, yeah? Excuse me while I just fill up this water. I like to sort of pace around a bit when I'm presenting, so there's quite a good chance I'm going to stack it off the stage because it's not that deep. So at least you'll have that. But let's hope I keep it all together. Yeah, thank you everyone for being here. It's a pleasure to be here myself. I work in strategy for GumGum. And I just want to carry on where the guys left off on some really interesting points around the open web. Because digital advertising can be complex, overly complex, but sometimes we need to get back to basics and talk about the open web and what it is, because fundamentally, one of the core principles of advertising is about strategic placement, right? And the open web is like one of humankind's best achievements. Like, there are challenges, don't get me wrong, and it's not easy to manage that, but it's a decentralized environment, and it provides free access to information for over 5 billion people, right? So why wouldn't you see that as an advertising opportunity? And I'm not saying it's easy, it's certainly not, but there is opportunity to reach people there. Now, in the mindset era that GumGum talks about, the open web holds massive potential for the match of brands to consumers. Crucially, we consider it to be a viable, credible alternative solution to the walled gardens, as Pete alluded to just then. But that final point is really important, with the right technology. So that's some of the things that I'm going to talk to you a bit about today, and about what GumGum's doing in the areas of technological development to make the open web work for advertisers. So we built a new AI tool, which we feel is going to unlock the potential of the mindset era that we talk about a lot. And it's called the Mindset Graph. This is a really significant milestone for GumGum as a company. The Mindset Graph is the connective tissue of GumGum Contextual, GumGum Attention, and GumGum Creative. The three parts that form that Venn diagram that we've been bringing out to market for some time. Now, the three parts of our business create a lot of data, and the graph is the underlying data engine that powers our Mindset platform. So just touching on those three parts of the business and the data they create. GumGum Contextual is probably the part of our business that people think of the most when we talk about the data that GumGum holds. It's absolutely vital to what we do, and it's also MRC accredited at a content level. That means that when we are scanning the open web, we are looking at the content to a depth that no other vendor can. More so than IAS, more so than Double Verify, more so than anybody in the open web. The only other two companies that have that kind of accreditation are Google for YouTube and Meta. So GumGum is doing something particularly unique. We're gathering, as Jess alluded to earlier, 150 million different content signals daily. The second is attention. We measure attention on every single impression that we serve, whether our clients ask for it or not. And we're finding more and more clients are asking for it, which is great. It's a vital part of what we do. We believe in it. We believe it's the best currency for digital advertising. You can see that through the correlation that we're determining between increased attention with ads and outcomes, more so than any other metric we've been used to, more so than CTR. There was never a correlation between CTR and outcomes, more so than viewability, which is a hygiene metric, and don't get me wrong, very important, but attention is the one that we're landing on that is really a step change in the development of effective digital advertising, and GumGum leads the way on that. You don't just have to take our word for it. Vendors such as Lumen and Adelaide, they're saying the same thing. That's why we make it such a cornerstone of our business. And finally, creative. It might be a bit of a misconception, but creative creates so much data that we can do so much with, right? We've run thousands of campaigns with thousands, tens of thousands of different creative variations. We know what variables work, and we're going to make that information available to you. So this is all about making sense of it. I talked about those three parts: context, attention, and creative. The graph is the brain, and that brain manifests as three different products. our planning tool, our activation tool, and our reporting tool. They're three different parts, but it represents a single end-to-end solution that's contained within the graph. The planning one is the one I'm going to talk about in a little bit more depth. That's because it sort of pertains mainly to what I do and on the team that I work on. But the activation ones and the reporting ones are fundamental elements that allow you to close the loop and deliver more effective campaigns. The result is creating the match that we're aiming for. The result is brand alignment with content that naturally fits your message. All that stuff that Pete talked about making sure you're reaching people in the right moment, this is what the graph's going to enable you to do. Because ultimately, 74% of consumers prefer the ads that they see to be related to the content they're watching. Right? It's such a basic truth of advertising. It doesn't just exist in the digital ecosystem. Like one of my sort of favorite, I suppose I'm speaking as somebody who works in marketing, but an ad that really resonates with me is the one that Domino's do before the football on like Super Sunday, which is like order now for half time. That ad resonates really well because it's relevant to the mindset and the moment. What we're saying from GumGum is that we can make that happen. We are making that happen in the open web, getting people in the right mindset, ensuring that consumers are seeing ads that are relevant to that moment, to that mindset. And it goes without saying, all of this is done without the use of PII, bespoke IDs, or any device fingerprinting. We're just using the signals on the page to determine the mindset of the consumer and find the perfect consumer and brand match. So, what actually can we do? Let's talk about the tool. Let's talk about its functionality. Let's talk about what it delivers. I've worked agency side, I've worked client side, and I know that what brands are looking for, what great campaigns are built on, are consumer insights. I worked on a number of different pitches when I was at an agency, and one of the things that I always got asked was, what's the proof point? What's the proof point? How can you back up your assertion, right? Great campaigns are built on those consumer insights. With the graph, we are bringing those consumer insights to you. We're helping you understand contexts that are relevant to your brand, to your challenge, to your consumer, that you hadn't thought of. We're helping identify new category entry points. I'll show you some examples in a bit. And target where consumers are or where they're not. What does your market look like? What are the opportunities? What are the threats? It's all very valuable insight. The way that I see it is, I think one of the most valuable tools in understanding consumer interest, consumer intent, is search data. So you would go onto like Google search trends, you'd input a brand, you'd input a topic, you'd input a subject, and what that would do is that will show you the relative volumes of searches, right? That's a gauge of consumer intent because it requires you to make a search. What GumGum's doing is kind of similar but slightly different to that. Because GumGum is picking up content signals from what people are reading, the consumer doesn't have to do anything. They just have to be there, and we'll pick up that signal, and we'll pick up that trend. So when a certain subject, cultural trend, anything really, begins to get traction, we see that, and it doesn't require a single search to be made. So you can get this brilliant correlation mapping Google search trends, so it's showing direct intent, with GumGum data showing passive interest, and then you've got some very, very valuable consumer insights. I'll show you how we've done that for a few brands. This is like a really, really good example, which I've talked about from the real inception of the mindset graph. And Meg knows all about this, and I can't see her in the, there she is. So I have to credit my colleague Meg who picked this up. We were doing some work for Chéron, who are like luxury goods brand. And we were looking for their brand, or some of their brands, in the open web. I'm saying, where do you typically show up? Like in what contexts? And one of the ones we saw was beekeeping. And we were actually with the client in the room when we pulled it up. And they were like, why is beekeeping there? And we were like, that's a good question. It turns out beekeeping is like the hot new hobby of the 1%, right? That's not our words. That is taken from an article from a publisher, I can't remember their name, who was talking about it. It features as David Beckham's favorite hobby, apparently, or one of his favorite hobbies on his house in the Cotswold. And what we're seeing is a trend and a shift there around luxury goods and how they show up. And beekeeping was one of those areas. Now, we didn't say to Chéron, go all in on beekeeping. There's loads of content out there, right? Because there's not. But what we see here is the start of a trend. This could inform, to what we talked about, with Amy and Stu just then, how you talk with the creative agency. Do you take a new approach to luxury goods? Do you focus on the hobbies and interests of luxury consumers rather than going product first? It just gave them something to think about. Second one, we did some work for Next. This was incredibly difficult because you won't be surprised to hear when you scan the open web for the word Next, you get a lot of stuff come back, and most of it's not relevant. But when you actually look at what they care about fashion trends, about affordable fashion, you do start to pick up some signals that's very, very relevant to their brand, very relevant to their market. And we saw this synergy between fashion and crafts. What it was saying to us, combined with other data points that we analyzed and aggregated together, was that there are some trends in the space around sort of upcycling and reuse of garments, and people looking to save money as well as look good. You only have to see that through the growth of brands like Vinted. It was tapping into something that was very relevant for that brand. And when we talked to the clients about this, they absolutely acknowledged it. They said, yes, this is stuff that we see. It's great to get another data point, a really valuable data point, to back up what we believe to be true. And finally, one that I was particularly involved in was for Johnson's Baby, for Kenvue. So they came to us with a challenge, and I love it when you get these kind of questions because it allows you to really meander across different ideas and thoughts. They said that Johnson's Baby, as a brand, is having sort of trouble from new competitors in the market, like My Little Coco was the name of one. I can't remember the name of the other, but they gave us a few of the brands that were new to the market in baby products. And they said, like, what are they doing differently that's enabled them to cut through? And we started seeing those brands appearing in the context that you didn't see Johnson's Baby or Aveeno appearing in. They were in sort of celebrity style, they were in showbiz, they were in popular culture, whereas Johnson's were in those kind of more traditional ones. It showed them a little bit about how the market dynamics were shifting around parenting and baby products. Why I think this is really relevant to GumGum and why I love using this example is because if you think about how this consumer behaves, if you think about parents, particularly parents for the first time, one of the most valuable resources you have is just your phone and your laptop and just researching, Googling, is this normal? What's the best thing to buy? What is this milestone like as I bring up a baby? So you can see how the open web is an incredibly potent and useful tool for those particular consumers, and that's where GumGum really shines, allowing these brands, such as Johnson's, to target those consumers in the right mindset, even if it's in context that they didn't anticipate. So that's a bit about like the planning tool and the stuff that we're using, and we are using that tool on every single brief that comes through to GumGum at the moment, with a vision to ultimately getting it into your hands in the future so that you'll be able to run this analysis yourselves. And I hope you can see that this kind of insight has application beyond campaign planning as well. It can be used in brand planning and general marketing planning. So the possibilities are endless. I touched earlier upon creative as well, and about how we can gather so much data from different creative campaigns that we run, or different creative formats we run. This is an example of how it manifests. So we've uploaded thousands of creatives that we've run as a company over a number of different years. We've looked at all the different creative attributes and variables, and we found out which ones drive attention, because attention is, of course, the currency that we use to determine the effectiveness of a campaign. And you can see that comes right down to the color palette that's used, the imagery, the brand, the call to action. What you can do is pre-campaign is upload a creative, and then we can offer you advice and say, this looks fine, but if you change this element or change this element, our experience shows you drive better results. It allows you to explore different A/B testing. It allows you to make sure that you're getting the maximum value out of your creative asset. As we know, creative is the element that drives campaign success more than any other. So I hope you can see through what we talked about how the graph has that practical application. It's live now. We use it now. We're building it incredibly quickly because we really believe in it, and we believe this is a real step change in making the incredible data that GumGum holds accessible to you, useful to you, and delivering more effective campaigns. So that's it from me in isolation, but I'm very, very pleased to bring up an esteemed guest, who's Mr. Jack Cantwell, who looked very surprised to be called upon there, who's Head of Digital Data and Technology at Carat Global.
Are we going to dance?
Whatever suits you, whatever suits you.
Thank you, mate.
So, Jack, thank you. I'm just going to take a sip of water.
No worries.
I managed to make this so far without falling off stage.
It is narrow, isn't it?
It is very narrow.
I'm now worried.
More narrow than I'd like, mate. More narrow than I'd like.
So,
look, I've got a few questions for Jack. I've known Jack for a few years now. A very, very bright guy, very, very knowledgeable in this space, works on some incredible clients. So we wanted to get him on stage to talk about football. Look, Jack, where do you see the value in leveraging new tech and data for audience and campaign planning?
Great question, James. I think firstly, the piece around, I think Amy mentioned around storytelling is super important, right? Brands and consumers come together at various different touch points, various different ways. The way that you create magic and lasting kind of connection and ultimately brand and business growth is through creating amazing stories that they can engage with. So that's really important. I think if you think about brands and consumers together, I think you mentioned eras, your kind of identity to mindset era. It made me think of Taylor Swift Eras Tour, which is great. But then thinking about kind of my view is we've kind of come from the broadcast era all the way back from kind of TV, etc. The precision era, again, that Amy and Stu mentioned around precision targeting, mass personalization. And we're kind of now in this algorithmic era, right? And we're in a space where AI and models are increasingly becoming the arbiters of information. So it's harder for a brand to get their message in front of consumer because you've got AI and algorithms that are determining who sees what. You think of when you go to Netflix, you're recommended a show. You go to Meta, your feed is dictated by this. It's really hard to kind of come away from that. And I guess in the middle of that are people, right? And the fascinating thing about people is they're dynamic. They're different. They're not static. And I think, again, Amy touched on it. We've come from a place of, wanting to speak to everyone on an ID basis, and people are not static things. I think, great case in point. A little while ago, but my photo, I'm very different to them. I don't have glasses, and I've got a moustache. Right? Totally different person. I might be looking now for moustache grooming kits, which I probably do, or no, I'm not looking for prescription glasses, but an entity that sees me as a number isn't going to understand that, and actually there's something very powerful in understanding people as their whole selves that's really important. And that, again, a few people have touched on walled gardens, and that walled gardens are scaled. I think Amy beautifully put they're scaled. They're necessary in a number of ways and useful and impactful. But if you're a brand trying to reach and engage with consumers, you're using the same walled gardens, the same data in those, the same models and algorithms. Ultimately, you're not creating any sort of competitive advantage. So the ability for a brand to cut through that and, again, be, as Pete mentioned, open source is incredibly important.
Yeah. I'm going to go a little bit off piece there. I warned you I might do that, but I know you're a good skier. So it is...
Very average. I fell over twice a couple of weeks ago.
Do you think there's a case where we've tried to be too clever? Do you think there's a case where, like, the industry have tried to impress clients by saying, this tech does this and this tech does that, and it's really good, and we're leveraging it? And you kind of put the cart before the horse, right? You lose that purity of advertising because you're so focused on the how, you kind of stop to think about the why and whether this is really the right thing to do.
100%. Like the craft of media is critical, right? And you've got communications planning is really how you deliver great brand consumer experiences, right? That's fundamental. And I think that the level or the number of MarTech solutions over the last 10 years has increased by 3,000%. There's choice paralysis, great cliche. There's too much out there, right? And you've got so many different technologies, a wealth of data, troves of data. It's harder to navigate through that. And yes, there are great tools that you can be smarter with data and segment it in different ways. But yeah, ultimately we are being far too clever. We're over-engineering a lot of things, and the craft piece, the storytelling piece is important. And that only really comes together when you bring together media, content, creative, data, attention, all those things together in one place. And for brands and consumers, it's really important. And we talk about designing for people, right? And that's not a static ad in one place. It's the content within that. It's what you're saying. It's the environment in which you're experiencing that. So technology is not the answer. It's an enabler.
Yeah, totally. Are there things that have surprised you about the clients at Carat, about their adoption of, data, technology, things such as GumGum's solutions?
Yeah, the first is around the need for data enrichment, right? And if you think about CPG brands, don't often have a lot of first-party data, right? Yeah. They're then kind of missing a trick there. Then obviously you've got deprecation of cookies or other sort of identifiers, and suddenly they're kind of like, well, what do we do about this, right? So they want to be able to augment and enrich what data they can use to be able to target whoever and deliver their kind of communications. And we can talk about, again, culture and commerce data is for CPG brands is more important, because if you think about purchase states, it's not just a purchase happened, but it's how often is that purchase happening, where is it happening, the frequency, the other things around that. And then you bring that roundedness, that understanding of a person, again, the dynamic nature of someone who one day might buy a certain brand of beer, they might go to the supermarket and actually go, well, I'm having an Italian dinner party, I'm going to buy a Birra Moretti. It's a completely different brand that they normally buy. Yeah. You have to be able to understand that. So clients are continually looking for ways to enrich data, which is why I think something like that sort of self-serve platform is an amazing asset for brands and agencies, because they can go and use another tool, a really valuable tool in their arsenal, an open source tool in their arsenal, to be able Arsenal. Great, there you go. Sorry, we knew we'd get football in there somehow. To be able to kind of deliver that. I think the other thing for clients as well is there's almost an unquenchable thirst for experimentation and testing. I think last year was a lot of great chat about AI and tools and technologies, etc. Always is, but last year more than ever. This year there's almost a burning need to go and do this, and it's a proper inflection point where people who are not embracing this and scaling it, not just doing it, but experimenting aggressively and scaling, are going to lose out and not have the competitive advantage that their other kind of counterparts will.
Yeah. That's awesome. Look, great to hear about what spurs you on. Spurs?
Swat.
Not even a Spurs fan.
Yeah, we don't talk about that here. I'm leaving.
So look, where do you see the future of these digital data and tech philosophies, and what do you need from the industry to support you?
It's a good question. For us, and my personal opinion, it comes down to harnessing a couple of things, right? You have AI, artificial intelligence, which is everywhere. We can't escape it, but it's an incredibly powerful tool to be able to automate, integrate, analyze at a scale and a speed and velocity that we were never able to before, right? AI is great on its own, but you have to have things that kind of fuel that. So AI is the engine, right? Yeah. You've then got people intelligence, so PI. Not PII, but people intelligence, understanding people as their whole selves, again, culture data, commerce data, etc., and the ability to truly understand people's motivations, mindsets, needs, etc., how they operate as people, and really importantly, how they interact with other people as well is important. It's not just themselves, it's how they integrate as a kind of community. So PI is really important. The third element is then WI, so workflow intelligence, the ability to bring that together in a platform or systems. And again, you're doing that at GumGum, which is great. You're bringing AI, PI, and WI together. Other agencies, brands, and we're doing the same thing as well. That infrastructure, that systems thinking, is important to realise success in that space. I think from what we need, and I think either Pete or Stu mentioned it, is we got to lead the horse to water, right? So it's hard with brands and marketers. If you're a CMO, if you're a CFO, even especially, it's harder to get them to understand this world of understanding people, of communications planning. It just sounds really fucking waffly, doesn't it? It's not a number. It's not a hard thing you can attach to. So it's really hard to do that. And again, the ability to use these wonderful agentic solutions and technologies as enablers to, again, ingest, analyze, generate, create is important. We need to be doing more of it. We need to be thinking more collaboratively with media agencies, most of us here, but then also how we collaborate with creative agencies. I think, again, Amy mentioned it, they have a critical, important role to play in that. Creative's a massive driver of advertising profitability. we can't do it without them. We fight sometimes, and we're on different sides sometimes, but we have to come together and support each other.
Jack, loved what you said. Really, really interesting, and I couldn't further articulate anything more than that. It's brilliant, and always a pleasure to talk to you. I hope you guys, enjoyed hearing from Jack as much as I did. And yeah, catch him by the bar if you want to talk a little bit more about AI, PI, and WI. There you go.
You got it.
Thank you very much.
Cheers. Thanks, mate.
Right.